Balance of Power. Here he is, Joe Matthew.
All right, Charlie Pellet with the Kid Rock bump on Wall Street. It's great to see you, Charlie. Welcome to the Tuesday edition of Balance of Power here on Bloomberg Radio, satellite radio, channel 121, and on YouTube. Yeah, this day before the tariffs go into effect, it's pretty much all anyone's talking about in Washington and, for that matter, on Wall Street. It's all we've been talking about for days. We'll sit here tomorrow, right at this time, wondering exactly what President Trump is going to announce. It'll be in the Rose Garden at 4 o'clock. If it's what we're hearing, and by the way, we're hearing a lot of different things from the president himself, from his lieutenants like Scott Bessent and Howard Lutnick. But Mark Zandi says this is going to hurt. You talk about no pain, no gain. Assuming the permanent tariffs take effect in the current quarter, if Donald Trump showed up with full smash tomorrow, Liberation Day, 20% across the board, right? He's threatened it. Mark Zandi says the economy would almost immediately tumble into a recession that would last for more than a year, sending the jobless rate above 7%. Chief economist Moody's Analytics, that's his worst case scenario. Say what you will. You can try to blow holes in that. Maybe you should. Maybe this leads to a new world order. But could be a little bit difficult to navigate in the outset here. And certainly when the president speaks at 4 o'clock in the Rose Garden, could be a little bit difficult to actually get our arms around everything that's being announced here, unless it is just an across-the-board 20%. We're talking about dozens, if not hundreds of countries. So every day I get up out of my little desk in front of my terminal in the newsroom and I walk around the other side of the room and I see Bloomberg Intelligence. They got their row lined up. These are the sharpest men and women in the room, right? You know Nathan Dean, and he's sitting there with his headset on taking phone calls from people just like you wondering what in the world is going to happen next. The fun part about Nathan is they can ask him about anything. It's not just tariffs. It's about the reconciliation deal, the budgeting process, the debt ceiling on Capitol Hill, and so forth. That's why he is the senior U.S. policy analyst at BI. Nathan Dean, welcome back. Who's calling today?
We actually had a couple of calls this morning, obviously, about tariffs. But, the interesting thing is that a lot of the investors that were calling us are looking forward to tomorrow just in the form that you're going to get data and you're going to get intelligence and you potentially get some clarity. Now, I don't think it's going to be the clarity that everybody's going to say, look and see, but it's like the clarity you get when you go to the dentist and afterwards you feel a little bit better just because you got it over with.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, but I think what's going to happen tomorrow is you're going to see the statement of here are these tariffs. Some of them are going to go in April 3rd, but I also think you're going to see some uncertainty in terms of, okay, now that these tariffs are here, what's the negotiation ploy? How do we walk this back? Because there's this general feeling in Wall Street that President Trump's not going to do this. Well, then he does. Okay, well, if he does it, is he going to walk it back? And just remember, we're beginning to see some angst on the Senate Republican side. Tonight's vote potentially could be that. We saw President Trump just, put on Truth Social a few moments ago saying, hey, maybe potentially Senator Collins, don't vote with the Democrats tonight. So, I think you're going to get some clarity tomorrow, but not enough that you're going to feel really good going into next week because this party is going to continue just for the next few weeks and months.
You're talking about this effort by Democrats to a legislative answer to this that Tim Kaine, the Democrat from Virginia, is pursuing. This isn't going anywhere, is it?
No, I mean, obviously, House Speaker Mike Johnson has already prohibited the ability for the House to pick up something. And then secondly, I would just say this is a resolution. I mean, this isn't really so much a piece of legislation. And, Congress delegated its authority many, many years ago to the president in terms of implementing tariffs, whether it's Section 301 or IEPA or so forth. And then Congress isn't going to take that back. I mean, because if you get congressionally mandated tariff, then you need a congressional mandate to undo the tariff. And presidents over the last 50 years, Congress has always felt that presidents need that flexibility.
See Kid Rock in the Oval last night?
That was a great dress. Or, sorry, a great outfit.
Yeah, my God. The colors were, I don't know who his tailor is, but shades of Elvis with Nixon. What were they trying to go for there? Do you think these guys really get along?
Oh, I think so, but I also think that President Trump needs the Rust Belt to support him through this because the question we get from investors a lot of time is, what will it take for President Trump to pull back on these tariffs? And we've always come back with our own view is consumer confidence within the Rust Belt because all the actions that we've seen so far on tariffs these aren't things that, mom and pop go to grocery stores and purchase. I mean, we've talked about it on a philosophical and a theoretical exercise. When we talk about automobiles, for example, or if you talk about reciprocal tariffs on potash from Saskatchewan, sure. Farmers are going to start getting involved. The Rust Belt's going to start getting involved. And President Trump is going to need those supporters to keep the line, because I think President Trump, in his view, sees this as a long-term effort, even though there's going to be a lot of short-term gain.
It makes you wonder if Kid Rock is more the conscience of the White House than, say, Elon Musk is. But I bring up that event yesterday because of what President Trump said. Could be significantly or substantially lower, I think the word was that he used, substantially. So we're going to be kind relative to our trading partners. So is there some massive relief rally on Thursday when these tariffs don't have near the teeth that many thought?
I don't think so, because President Trump often changes his mind. First there's going to be the shock, then there is the awe, then there is the walk back. And, we even saw it over the weekend when President Trump on Air Force One said that, I'm going back to this idea of reciprocal tariffs, broad reciprocal tariffs. That's something that Washington really hadn't been thinking about, because everybody presumed there was going to be sectoral tariffs. And as long as President Trump is still thinking about tariffs, I don't think you're going to get much clarity in terms of a long-term, or say for the next few quarters. But I will say, though, is that I think, as you move away from the tariffs into more of the Senate budget resolution, or the extending of the tax cuts, there are going to be elements of that markets are going to like.
Yeah.
And, getting two of them together, you may be able to get to a situation where you can work it out and figure out this is what the status quo will be for the next few months.
Apparently, the vote with Senator Tim Kaine of Virginia may be delayed because of what's happening on the Senate floor right now. Have you been watching Senator Booker? Cory Booker has been talking. This is a live view, right? There are a couple of senators, I guess, that are getting involved here. I don't know if you can tell us what's happening, James, but Booker's been talking for over 12 hours. I think it's over 15 or something like that. They're fooling around with the feed here. But if that goes on, the vote might not take place. Your point is it doesn't matter anyway. What is it that Wall Street is most scared of learning tomorrow?
Well, I think it's what you just alluded to earlier in terms of a broad, large tariff that potentially puts us into a recession. Because if you think about this in terms of 2025, I think a lot of Wall Street analysts and investors were anticipating getting an adrenaline shot in the arm from the tax cuts, or eventually the tax extensions. But subsequently, the tariff is potentially something that's just working to the opposite of that. And then you throw into all this idea of the deficit not being reduced and so forth. Where I'm going with here is that the one thing I think the markets really want to see tomorrow is a definitive statement. Either it's here's what the tariffs and here's what you have to deal with for the next few months, or I've decided to pull back and we're going to pause for 30 to 60 days. I think the one thing the markets will not like is if you get a situation where some tariffs go into fruition on April 3rd, some tariffs get pushed off, and President Trump essentially says to the world, we're now open for negotiation, and we go back and forth to this game of, is it sectoral, is it reciprocal, or is it not happening at all?
Do we get a vote this week on a budget resolution that might start to answer some questions on reconciliation? That's the other major story that's churning in Washington. I'm guessing your phone's ringing a fraction of the time on this, but this is important to the markets too.
Yeah, I think we do, because what we're telling our clients is just remember, this is not a legislation bill. There's no specific language in here. It's a blueprint, and it's easy to vote for a blueprint. I mean, you're not putting it. It's like, look, I could vote for a blueprint to lose weight, but trying to figure out how to stop eating those cookies, that's a little bit more difficult thing, and that's where the Senate is at the moment. All they're trying to do is vote for a blueprint. They're going to fight another day. Now, obviously, the House and the Senate have to figure out their differences. We saw a lot of folks on the House side saying, look, I don't like this idea that the Senate is only pursuing a $3 billion floor. And obviously, there's not going to be, if you include things like the debt ceiling, there's a lot of differences here between the House and the Senate. But we remain committed, at least with our call, that 80% chance by the end of the year, Congress figures out a deal to keep that tax extension going. Whether it's for a couple of years or where it's longer, it's still to be determined. But we do not see taxes going up at the end of this year. We do think they'll come to an agreement.
Does the debt ceiling end up being included here, or does that have to be handled alone because this will take much longer than anyone's anticipating?
What we tell our clients is it doesn't matter to us. We think the debt ceiling is going to get raised either way. But it does matter in terms of the timing of this. We've always said that we think the tax extension bill is going to come after the August recess. But if Treasury and the Congressional Budget Office comes back and says the debt ceiling is in August and it's included, obviously that's going to push the calendar up. So if they pursue with the debt ceiling, I think President Trump can get those skeptical House Republicans on board with the debt ceiling vote. Obviously, they're not going to like it. If it's $5 trillion in extension, they're obviously not going to like that. But as we saw with the continuing resolution, President Trump, if he gets into the nitty-gritty of congressional debates, he could probably get those House skeptical Republicans on board.
This is going to end up being a much louder story in Washington, right? Standalone debt ceiling. Maybe they attach something to it, but they're going to have to get to this first.
Yeah, obviously. And look, it has to get done, or else you're going to have extreme market issues, especially in the fixed income side.
Yeah. All right. So there's Cory Booker. We found him for you. He started at 7 o'clock last night. I was way off. He's been going for like 17 hours. And I don't know if he ends up in the history books here, but he's been speaking in protest, of course, it's not just the tariffs, Donald Trump's policies up and down across the board. What do you think of this? It's like Jimmy Stewart time for Cory Booker.
I'm going to let you in on some technical analysis about right before we came on the call.
Please.
We were all looking at how amazing he looked for being up for as long as he had.
Yeah. What are they giving him?
I would be in an absolute. But, obviously, I think that Senator Booker's doing this for political reasons. He's doing this in a way to showcase to people that, look, he knows how to fight. And I think this is just something that you're going to see more and more of over the next couple of years.
Fascinating. As we watch, he's not done. I mean, we could hit 20 hours, 24 hours. What's for dinner in New Jersey? Nathan Dean, the best. Thank you, sir, as always, at Bloomberg Intelligence with our live view of the Senate floor here on YouTube. Search Bloomberg Business News Live. Meet us here for our live stream. Senator Booker just getting started, it looks like. We'll assemble our panel next. Rick and Jeannie are on the way in right here on Bloomberg.